Story. Once upon a time, in the village of Umuchu, there lived a man called Ugonna, who lived happily with his wife and 5 daughters. He wasn't pleased that his wife gave birth to only girls, but he was grateful to his chi for giving him children. Ugonna is a very handsome and wealthy man, and the envy of everyone in Umuchu. All the men wanted to be like him because his wife, Olamma, was the most beautiful woman in the whole 4 villages. Ugonna had 3 brothers and they all loved him or claimed to love him. They would always pretend to love him and his children whenever they visited their brother. But when their brother is not around, they would abuse him and say all kinds of evil things about him. They were two-faced people. This hatred had been in them since they were kids. When the 4 brothers, Ikenna, Ebuka, Ifenna, and Ugonna were growing up, everything seemed to be going well for only Ugonna. Whenever they planted something on their farm, during harvest, Ugonna's harvest was always bountiful, but his brother's own will either be eaten by an animal or they will be infested with pests. Everything works perfectly for Ugonna. Their parents noticed what was happening, but couldn't do anything about it. They would only tell the 3 brothers that it is not Ugonna's doing. His chi is very strong. This continued for years. When Ugonna brought Olamma home to introduce to his parents as the woman he wants to marry, the brothers became furious. They stormed out of the house. Ikenna said, "I cannot believe that boy wants to get married before me. Is it because I don't have money? This is an insult and I won't take it." Ebuka said, "This boy doesn't know his place in this house. He is the last born, but he is wealthier than us." Ifenna said, "Let's kill him." They both turned and looked at Ifenna with shock written all over their faces. "May the gods forbid that I have blood on my hands," Ikenna said. "Me too," Ebuka said almost immediately. "Then stop complaining. Since you don't want to kill him and take over everything he has," Ifenna said. Ikenna and Ebuka went in and they all pretended to be happy for Ugonna. Their parents blessed Ugonna and Olamma and they got married. Ugonna's first daughter, Amara, is very beautiful, but not as beautiful as the last born, Chimdindo. Ugonna made sure all his daughters had everything they wanted. He took very good care of them. Whenever he goes to the market, he buys each of them something nice. One day, Ugonna came back rejoicing. He was very happy, and instead of going home to share the news with his wife and children, he went straight to his family house, where his 3 brothers were living together with their wives. He wanted to share the news with his mother and his brothers. When he got to the house, he was rejoicing and shouting on top of his voice. His aged mother saw him and was smiling. "What good did your chi do for you this time?" she asked. Ikenna came out, and when he heard what had happened to Ugonna, he went inside and told Ebuka and Ifenna. Ifenna suggested again, "Let's kill him and take over his properties." Ikenna didn't argue, but agreed with Ifenna. Ebuka said, "I will take his wife and some of his yam bands." Ikenna looked at him and said, "You already have a wife and 3 sons. Why do you want his wife?" They started arguing about how to share his property when they killed him. Ifenna shouted at them and said, "We haven't carried out this plan, and you are already fighting over his wife. Let's think of a way to kill him." Ikenna said, "There is a poison I bought 3 market days ago. I wanted to use it for the pets at the farm. We can put it in his drink since he's already here. He won't notice." Very good, Ebuka and Ifenna said. They put the poison in the palm wine cup they offered to Ugonna. They too poured themselves palm wine from the same jar. They were laughing and congratulating him. After drinking, Ugonna left for his home. He was becoming tipsy but didn't want to sleep until he had told his wife what he found on his farm. When Ugonna got home, he saw his wife outside the house weaving a new sweater for him. He started praising her and she started dancing. The wife noticed he was happy and tipsy and asked what he was celebrating because he only praised her when he was very happy. He then told her about the gold he saw when farming on his farm today. She was very happy. He told her he wanted to sleep because he was very tipsy and feeling weak, and he didn't know why his body was doing him somehow. She asked what he ate. He said he didn't eat anything, but he drank palm wine with his brothers. He went inside and slept off. The next morning, when he didn't wake up early like he used to do, Olamma sent Amara to go and wake him up. She went and was calling him, "Mpa, Mpa, Mpa, wake up! Mpa, wake up!" But Ugonna was already dead. She came out and started shouting and crying. Olamma went inside and saw the lifeless body of her husband. She let out a high-pitched shout and ran outside, crying. When the brothers heard of his death, they pretended to be pained but laughed inside. One of the villagers who was going to console Olamma saw Ugonna's mother, who asked what was happening and why everyone was running towards Ugonna's house. The villager told her that Ugonna was found dead this morning. Ugonna's mother slumped and died instantly. 2 weeks after the burial of Ugonna and his mother, the brothers came to Olamma and told her that as tradition demands, she would have to marry one of them, and since she doesn't have a son, all his properties would be shared amongst them. They told her they would give her the privilege of choosing who to marry among them. Olamma stood up and said, "I will not marry any of you. I love my husband and I want to mourn him." The 3 brothers stood up, and just as they were about to leave, Ikenna turned and said to her, "You give us no choice." The next morning, they came with some men and threw Olamma and her daughters out with only their bags of clothes. Olamma took her children and went to her father's house, even though it's just a thatched house that leaks water during rainy season. It was better than living without a roof over their heads, Olamma thought. Olamma's parents had died 2 years after she got married to Ugonna, so the house looked deserted when they arrived. They started cleaning and arranging the place to make it look clean. Olamma only knew how to weave clothes, so she started weaving clothes and selling them. During the next farming season, she cleared some parts of the compound and planted vegetables and some crops there. Things were becoming very tough for them. Some days they would sleep on empty stomachs. Some days they will only have lunch. Olamma decided to allow her daughters to hawk fruits and other vegetables just so they could have food on their table. Chimdindo was also given something to hawk. One day, when Chimdindo was on her way to the market, she saw a man groaning in pain. She went and helped him up and cut medicinal leaf and gave him to chew. After chewing it, a few minutes later, he was well again. He thanked her and was asking for her name and home so he could come and thank her later. But she refused and said, "I didn't do it for you to pay me." After saying it, she ran away. The man couldn't meet up with her, but decided he was going to stalk her till he found out who she was. So every day he would come to the same spot and wait, hoping to see her pass. For 5 days he had waited in vain, with no sign of her. Just as he was about to leave on the 6th day, Chimdindo came passing the same spot. Immediately, he turned and saw her. He tried approaching her, but she started running very fast and he followed her, running after her and begging her to stop running. She continued and then stopped and turned but didn't see the man. She then started walking slowly to the market. Unknown to her, the man was hiding in a nearby bush close to where she was and was watching where she was going. She got to the market and met with her sisters, and they left to continue hawking. The next day, the man came to where she was hawking and said he wanted to buy everything she was selling. She looked up and immediately recognized him, but it was too late for her to run. She decided to only sell her fruits and vegetables and not engage in any discussion with him. He bought everything and gave her the money, and she immediately ran to her sisters rejoicing. The man kept coming every day and kept buying all her goods. He continued for 3 days before Chimdindo succumbed and started answering his questions. He told her his name and they became friends. He kept coming every day and was also helping her sell. 2 months later, the man whom Chimdindo now knows as Chidalo told her that he wanted to meet with her mother. She took him to see their home, and when he got there, he told Olamma that he wanted to marry her daughter. And she said, "I am not the person you want to marry. Tell her, and if she accepts you, I don't have a problem with that." Chidalu told Chimdindo his intention to marry her, and she accepted. They started preparing for the traditional marriage, but they needed someone from her father's village to stand in as the father. Olamma didn't want anything to do with them again, and that was why she never went back to beg them, even though there were times she and her daughters didn't have anything to eat. But tradition demands that one of them must be present. So Olamma decided to go to Umuch Village and inform her late husband's brothers about Chimdindo's marriage. When she got to Umuchu, she discovered that a lot had changed. Some parts of the village were deserted, while some parts looked scanty. It was very unlike the bustling village she used to know. When she got to her late husband's family house, she met some children who were looking very pale, as though they were sick or had been sick. And she asked if they knew where Mazi Ikenna was. They replied and said, "He is dead." She was shocked. She wasn't expecting that reply. She asked about Mazi Ebuka and Ifena, and they replied with saying he is dead. She looked around and saw that the house looked deserted, like a place where no one had been in years. So she went to her late husband's house, and on her way to the house, she met a woman, and after greeting, she asked what had happened in Umuchu village. She replied, "You haven't heard?" She said, "No, what happened?" The woman said, 2 years ago, a terrible illness struck the people of Umuchu. Mazi Ikenna, Ebuka and Ifenna caught the illness, but before the chief priest could find the cure, they died. The day they died, they confessed. Olamma, still shocked, asked, "What confession was that?" The woman replied, "They confessed to killing their brother Ugonna." Olamma fell and started weeping. She was consoling her, and she told them that Ugonna was her husband. She went back to her father's village and asked one of her relatives to act as Chimdindo's father on her traditional marriage day. The traditional marriage day came, and Chimdindo was dressed in a very beautiful attire, waiting for Chidalu and his family. When Chidalu arrived with his family, their servants drummed, sang, and danced. The sisters ran to tell Chimdindo what they saw. "Chimdindo, Chimdindo, you are getting married to a prince. You are getting married to a prince," so Amara said, shedding tears of joy. The marriage rite was concluded, and Prince Chidalu took Chimdindo home, and she became a princess. 2 months later, Chimdindo asked her mother and sisters to move into the palace with her, and they did. Chimdindo and her Prince Charming lived happily together, and her sisters got married to prestigious men in that village. There are lots of things to be learned from this story, but I will let you, my lovelies, comment on what you learned. I will be very happy to read them in the comment section. How many of you completed the story dialogue? Tell me in the comment section. I would love to hear how many people were used to this story method. Thank you for watching. Please comment on what you learned, like, share, and subscribe to this channel. See you in my next video. Bye.